Happy Wednesday evening, y'all. I'm your host, Shamika Rhymes, and welcome to Celebration. Let me know where you are watching from and how you're doing this evening. Drop that in the chat. Remember to share this with your network. And if you have any questions at all during the show, again, drop it in the chat. You know, y'all are my co-hosts, so we'll get to those questions for sure. I'm so hyped about tonight's show, y'all. I really am. And I'm wearing red because Valentine's Day, trying to get into the spirit of it, right? So if you're looking for, are you looking for real, no nonsense advice on dating with intention? Well, tonight we are going to have that real conversation. Like we're going to be transparent, open, all the things. And I want y'all to do the same in the chat. And we're going to take a look into what it means to be intentional in your love life, how to attract the right partner, avoiding common dating pitfalls, and how to build those meaningful connections that last. So whether you're single, you're dating, you're married, or wondering how to approach love in a more mindful way, this conversation is for you. I see Charlotte in the house, Gastonia, Asheville. Hey, y'all. And, also since Valentine's Day is literally right around the corner, we're going to make sure that you're fully prepared to navigate that day as well and the rest of the year with clarity and confidence. So let me tell you about tonight's guest. Tonight, we are joined by one of America's most trusted relationship and parenting experts, Dr. Adolph Doc Brown III. He's a clinical psychologist, a former tenured professor, and a master teacher who has spent over 3 decades, helping millions through his books, keynotes, and master classes. And you may know him as the co-host of ABC's The Parent Test. And his podcast on Patreon is called In the Balcony with Doc Brown, and it airs every single Sunday. So, let's welcome Doc Brown to the stage, the celebration stage.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining. I am so excited about tonight. But we got to start with the basics because I think this is what trips all of us up. What does that mean to date with intention? What does that mean to you, and why is it so important?
So dating with intention means being deliberate and going for exactly what it is that you desire. And it has to be consistent with your values, your belief, and then also, believe it or not, your attitude. But the problem with dating with intention is you can't do it without being purposeful and present. So when we talk about present in a date or any human interaction, being present is basically means being where your feet is, or your head and feet are in the same place. Mm-hmm. And how often is that not the case? Everyone you meet, folks, whether single, dating, in a marriage, everyone carries a second backpack. So I'm not saying that you have to know everyone's story. But if this is going to work, you have to know that everyone you meet has a story. Ooh. And if you're bringing that past with you, remember this, folks, the stuff that we carry. If we don't, we can't heal it if we don't reveal it. Ooh. So oftentimes we forget that our past is a place of reference and not residence, and we're bringing it into the present situation. So it's really difficult to be intentional when you're living in the past. The second, purposeful. But purposeful is actually just like having a compass and saying, this is where we're going. And I'm not going to let, I'm going to enjoy the adventure, but I'm not going to let anything interfere with the destination.
Oh, wow. You coming out the gate with it. So you mentioned that, about the past. So I guess you have to heal the past before you can come into the present, or do you? Or you just need to be mindful of what you're bringing into the present with you?
I really think it's what you just said, the second part. You have to be mindful, because healing has no time or space. It happens when it happens. So you have to be mindful of what you're carrying, because if you're not mindful, if we get in relationships and our backpack is full of trauma and other things that, that have happened to us in life, if we don't heal from that, then we bleed on people who didn't cut us. And that happens more often than not in dating relationships.
Huh. I'm like, okay, now you're opening my eyes to something as I'm thinking about my past. Now I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
So like whatever is on your plate. So whatever it is, and I don't use the plate analogy often because it's kind of in front of us. I'm talking about the stuff in the past, but it's whatever's on your plate. that you don't heal from gets served in every interaction. And when I say it gets served in every interaction, what happens is that becomes your filter. That becomes your emotional filter in dealing with people.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about confidence and clarity, you have a dirty filter.
Yeah, yeah. So if your filter is dirty, are you even ready to date with intention? Or can you date with intention?
You can, because we live in an imperfect world and we're imperfect people. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're mindful, so if someone were to meet you and they were to say to you, Shamika, hey, I saw you this place and I wanted to get to know you. And then we go out for coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And then I tell you some things about me. So the issue is that oftentimes the dirt hits people, out of the left or out of the blue, so to speak.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that if you're authentic and transparent in many of these situations, people are even more accepting than you think they would be.
Mm-hmm.
So why lie? Why hide? We're only as sick as our secrets. At the end of the day, as human beings, we're only as sick as our secrets.
Woo, you're preaching tonight, Doc, because I think that's been one thing I've noticed, that's why I see a lot of couples breaking up because of the secrets. It's
Yes.
because they weren't open and honest and upfront, when they're in that early stage of getting to know you or however that works. But they weren't. And then it comes up years down the road and it's like, well, why are you mad? Like, at least you know now. Like, it's like, don't
No,
work that way.
I've made a conscious decision. I've made an intentional efforts to be with you based on the information that you gave me. And then I get down the road and find out that it's faulty or false. Then I may not want this anymore because I'm with you because of what you shared.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Co-hosts in the chat, make sure you drop your questions. I see more people checking in. Um, well, what are the benefits of dating with intention?
Well, there are plenty of benefits. One
Mhm.
is that you get with someone and you can let them know what it is that you want. It's not where we're gonna just kick it. I think
Mhm.
that I'm old, but that's I'm old. Back in the day, it was kicking it led to doing it. But now I think they have just Netflix and chill combines them both. But
That's true.
right, but basically, you're saying when we're intentional, we're not going in circles.
Mhm.
And guess what? Unless we want to go in circles. So if I say that, and you're with that, then let's do that. But and guess what? And going in circles can be intentional if that's what you set out to do.
Okay.
See, we forget we think that intentional means like the next level of excellence.
Mhm.
And it doesn't always mean that. Intentional just means that you have a compass and you know where you're going. I look at it when I do couples retreats. I look at it like I tell them a treasure hunt. And on a treasure hunt, you decide what the treasure is. So when we meet, I have an idea what the treasure is. I want to know what you think the treasure is. So
Mhm.
we start there, then we get that compass to help us navigate, and we determine the journey, the where we're going to go, where we're going to explore, and then that's not it. And then a huge part of being intentional is reflecting on it, actually
Mhm.
thinking about it, and saying, "Am I getting what I set out to get?" Or a better question for all of you out there that are testing the waters is, "Do I deserve this?"
Ooh, so that point right there. I'm gonna get to y'all co-hosts. I see the questions, but he just hit on something I gotta touch on right now. How does one know how to answer that question? Do I deserve this? Like, because last week we were talking about self-care. Um, we had a guest talking about self-care and how if you neglect yourself and other people, you allow other people to neglect you. And I'm guilty of that. And you may your trauma may tell you you're not worthy, you don't deserve this. Like, so how can you get in a place
Well,
of I deserve this?
so when I talk about self-care,
Hmm.
I talk about it a little differently.
Okay.
So I would ask you and all the co-hosts out there,
Hmm.
if I were to ask you to write a list right now, would I write everyone to write a list right now of all the things you love? How long would it take you to add your name to that list?
Ooh, that's a good one.
If your name's not at the top of that list, then the self-care is not happening. And most people don't even think about themselves when I ask that question. They think about everybody else. And
Hmm.
that's the problem. We're talking about self-care. We're not talking about other care. So
Hmm.
your name has to be at the top of that list daily. And you have to do an assessment to make sure that your name's at the top of that list.
Okay. So is that how you know you deserve better, or you deserve whatever this is?
So if your name's at the top of the list,
Mhm.
that's letting you know that I can't take care of anyone. I can't love on anyone unless I'm loving and taking care of myself. Your name, and that's not selfish, folks.
Mhm.
That's the operational definition of true self-care.
Okay, I see some so true, and they like come on with it in the chat. Okay, so uh Elisa, I'm sorry if I'm messing your name up. Lawrence wants to know how quickly into dating should you reveal the stuff in your backpack that you mentioned earlier?
Okay, so dating like is like traveling. Remember that treasure map I'm talking about. If I'm
Mhm.
driving from Virginia to North Carolina, um, how often will I stop to get gas?
Mm.
Same concept in dating. We're gonna go a little ways to see how did that work out. We're not just gonna jump in a car and drive from Virginia, bypass North Carolina, and go to Florida. So what we're going to do, we're going to have a map, and we're going to take our time with that, and we're going to talk about that. So the further we get, we can stop, we can reflect to see. Sometimes you got to go backwards to go forward, because sometimes there's some things that I didn't quite understand and I want clarification. So let's go back and revisit that before we go any farther. So when you talk about when it's time, it's really relative. It's
Mhm.
relative to who you're with, and making sure we can use the term compatible. We can use the term, my favorite term, equally yoked. And when I
Mhm.
talk about being equally yoked, it's just like two oxen that are pulling a cart. If one oxen is pulling to the left and the other's pulling to the right, then that cart doesn't go anywhere. It might get turned over. But if we're moving together with intention, with purpose, with value, with mutual growth and respect, then it's possible that not only can we the oxen carry the cart, we might carry it to a really nice house.
Mhm. Yeah. Let's see. Trying to catch all the questions. Yeah, I love this. Crystal Lou Wood said, and people are misaligned sometimes, which you mentioned with that. And she says, if you're authentic, you allow people to be appropriately placed on that list.
That is so true. And let's talk
Mhm.
about being authentic. I'm not going to meet you, Shamika. If we're out, I'm not going to meet you and hey, let me just tell you everything. Did you
Mhm.
know my parents divorced when I was 2 years old? I mean, that's not. You would want to use authenticity like most people use it like a light switch on and off.
Mhm.
If,
Mhm.
if I think you're good, can get to know me, I can turn it on. It's not. I want you to start thinking of it as the dimmer switch, the
Okay.
dimmer switch. So
Mhm.
regardless of where I am, I'm going to be authentic. Now, guess what? If I feel like reviving, I'm going to turn it up to 100. But if not, guess what? You're still going to get the true me. You just won't get all of it. So I'll turn it down a little bit because it may be overwhelming, or we haven't gotten to that place yet.
Okay. So now, okay, let's back it up a little bit with dating. I think a lot of the issue, and this is just me personally, and also what I've read on social media, but the issue is men and women don't know how to approach each other because we're so used to being on social media. We talk like we're talking on social media sometimes. It's almost like these acronyms, and I'm like, wait, hold on. What do those letters mean? Like, you're not texting when you're standing in front of me talking to me. Like, so can you talk about the first, let's start with step one. How do you approach someone you're interested in?
Well, this communication, folks.
Yeah.
Communication and what's happened with social media, we're texting, we're what's happening with apps, their algorithms, what's happening with dating apps, their profiles, and you get to read about people and decide and pick and swipe. We need real time, honest human interaction. Mm-hmm. And that is a huge part of getting to know someone. That real time. It's not just in what's said, it's how it's said. It's looking someone in their eyes. So that has become awkward, to say the least, for a lot of people. However, I mean, that's what it's going to come down to truly have. I mean, there are people that thought they looked compatible on the app.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I do this, I do this, and they even saw photos. And then you get together and you can't communicate that compatibility. And folks, let me just throw this out there. Everybody talks about communication in relationships. It's not really the communication that's the impasse. It's the comprehension of the communication.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I see in the chat, Crystal coming with it in the chat now. She said communication requires connection. What do you think about that?
It's true. It's true. I mean, when you get with someone after email and then texting, it can be awkward, particularly to a generation that spent years doing it. I think it's awkward when I have relatives that have married through online meetings. Now, I get it. I get it. And it's a technology that's useful. But at the same time, what did you miss? What did you miss out on? There's a saying, particularly to couples in crisis. I'll say, we all marry the wrong people. And when I say that, what I mean is, when we marry someone, we marry them, or even date. We do that for strengths, because that's what the person is showing us. They're showing us their best. Mm-hmm. And then down the road, you get to see, when the transparency and the authenticity comes more, to the surface, you get to see some of those other things. So you're wondering, but we all have to remember that when we date, we're not just dating for the strengths. We're also dating for the weaknesses. And in those profiles, guess what you're not going to see? In those text messages, guess what you're not going to read? You're not necessarily going to read about somebody's weaknesses.
Unless they can't spell. If I can't figure out what you are saying, goodbye. I don't have time to translate. What about y'all in the chat? I'm just curious. So let's talk about some red flags too. What are the red flags we should be looking for? Obviously, the approach is probably maybe a little off. But once you decide, okay, I want to go out with this person, I want to get to know this person, what red flags should really pop out? Because I'm a good one for ignoring a red flag or 5 of them.
So the first is what we've been talking about. It's not communication, but lack of communication. Mm-hmm. Every healthy relationship has the component of healthy communication. Mm-hmm. So the lack of communication, and some of the ways that I would talk about lack of communication, if some touchy subjects would come up, and instead of talking about it or discussing it, you're arguing. You have someone who holds a grudge instead of holding a conversation. That's a huge red flag. Mm-hmm. Another one would be disrespect. And oftentimes, because people are trying to show their best selves, The disrespect may not be directed at you per se, but maybe to someone else. So pay attention when you go out to eat. How do they treat people that they perceive is beneath them? And the other issue is, my thing would be, no one should be beneath anyone. But if someone has that kind of an attitude, it lets you know they're pejorative, judgmental. It lets you know some things about them. So just pay attention to that. And lastly, the big one would be jealousy, excessive jealousy. And the ones that I'm talking about are the ones that have probably the most severe implications if it's not addressed early on.
Okay. Would inconsistency be, when I see a lot of people talk about inconsistency, and I see it in the chat too, would that be a red flag?
Oh, definitely. However, unforeseen circumstances befall us all.
Mm-hmm.
If someone continues not to be able to follow through, they stood you up for a concert and they say their mother was sick. And then the next time, it's a movie and I'm ill. I mean, so there's patterns. Mm-hmm. So patterns, but because we all have to make a living, sometimes people are late. So we have to remember too, folks, that whatever our insecurities are, those are projected in that relationship dynamic.
Okay. Well, I see people asking, what are some green flags? And we do spend a lot of time just in general on red flags, especially on social. But
Right.
I never see anybody holding up the green flags. So what are the green flags?
Active listener. An active listener, not a passive listener, not someone who only wants to talk on text, but an active listener that when you're communicating, they're attempting to listen. And then a great habit to have in any relationship is to have them tell you what you said. not just, you know what I mean?
Right.
No. So, give it back to me. So that's a green flag. Another green flag, one of my favorites, boundaries, healthy boundaries. And when I talk about boundaries, we always think about consistent, like a fence. Mm-hmm. But boundaries doesn't mean you're locking people out. Boundary just means I have a door and you have to knock to get in.
Okay.
I determine. Mm-hmm. So healthy boundaries. I would also say another would be honesty.
And that's hard for some people.
So
can you tell I'm bitter, Doc? Just a little bit.
So honesty, a good rule of thumb. If a person's honest with who they are, then the chances are they can be honest with you. Mm-hmm. But the issue is, how often do people truly get to know who they are before venturing out and to find a relationship when they haven't found out who they are? And over the years, I've found that when people do that, particularly an intentional relationship leading to marriage, it's usually people who, let's use a man, for example, it's usually people who would say, I want a wife, so to speak, mm-hmm. but they haven't thought about what it takes to be a husband.
Yeah. And actually somebody in the comments are asking, Crystal wants to know, why do you think there seems to be so many who don't believe in marriage anymore?
Well, I don't think people don't believe in marriage, but if you're going to give it to me before we get married, then, what was the saying? Why buy the cow?
Oh, yeah.
You can get the milk for free. But that's really true. It's really true. When we do things in dating relationship, if your name's at the top of the list, think of it like the metaphorical apple in the tree. Mm-hmm. You're an apple in the tree. So if anyone comes along don't come out of the tree. Don't fall to the ground for them, because that's not who you are. And if you fall into the ground, wipe yourself off and get back in the tree. It's called life. But make this person climb to get you. Make them have to, in so many words, if using a male, make a man up. You know, you're gonna have to work to get me. This is not going to be effortless. And what has happened is that we've both, all the sexes have made it easy. We made it easy. We're gonna smash. My kids told me that term, by the way. There's nothing romantic or sexy about smashing. I mean, like potatoes or something. I don't know, but anyway. So, but you're gonna do that, and then you still have things to do. But for a lot of people, that's the goal. That's the carrot, and you want them to work. Anything that's given, that we get easy, sometimes we don't respect it.
So what about, and I just saw this on, it might have been a YouTube video I was watching about, and the advice I've heard before, don't be too available.
Yes, very true.
Okay. Very
true. And it's not playing games, folks. You know, at a certain age, like, I'm not going to play games. It's not game playing. What it is in relationships, there's a distancer and there's a pursuer. That's the dynamic, distancer, pursuer. And the pursuer is really eager to catch the distancer. And again, you don't want to make it easy. You want that lends to adventure and excitement in a relationship. You know, if a person's texting you and you text right back, you text right back. What does that seem like? It doesn't seem like you're thirsty, but you hear my kids coming out of me, right?
You've learned well.
It's 22 to 35, so they taught me well. But so you want to be challenging. You want to be challenging. You don't want to be that apple on the ground.
Okay.
And in the metaphorical apple on the ground, what happens? Everybody takes a bite of that.
Or step on it and kick it.
Exactly. And if you've been on the ground, listen, we all can get back up in the tree. So get back up in the tree and stay in the tree. And then there's this common perception that that there's a limited dating pool. No, folks. The right person is out there for you, and don't waste it on trying to make someone right when they're not right for you. We're good at trying to fix people up to be what we want them to be. So, and when we do that, it's really kind of like we need to rescue ourselves, but we're trying to rescue somebody else.
And I think that goes back to that list that you were talking about, because we're putting them above us.
Yes.
and trying. I've been there, done that way too many times. So yes, I know. It's like because you want to fix them. You just want to help.
Right. Exactly. And that's a good quality to have. But you also want to help mate.
Right. Yes.
So there's that equally yoked, that compatibility again. And when I guess searching, they're just little questions that you can ask that are funny questions, but it gives you an idea of who you're with and what they think about accountability, responsibility. What's your credit score? Do you still live at home? I mean,
and who lives there? That's what you got to ask. Who lives there?
No, my wife lives upstairs. I live on the second floor. My girlfriend lives in the basement.
Right.
So now you're in an entanglement. But the point is that the pool is not limited. What you're looking may be limited. Listen, if you're going to Starbucks, if you're going to a shopping center, if you're going walking to the car at your job, I mean, there are people all around us, and the issue again is whatever happened to saying hello, hey,
Mhm.
I'd like to get to know you better. I don't know if if that's a good one to pull someone. I think the one when I was a kid was Shamika, did you hurt yourself?
No, 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 not that one. I wasn't even gonna let you finish it.
I think that was it. So if my wife and I probably weren't in the same cafeteria in college after hours, I probably wouldn't have had the nerve to ask her on a date. So,
Okay.
but yeah, people are all around us, and people notice you when you don't notice them.
Mhm.
Just be alert. Be alert. There was a time that people said, you got to go to church to find someone. Well, guess
Mhm.
what, folks? When I say we sometimes we marry the wrong person, who's going to show you their flaws when you met them in church?
Right.
Who's going to show you? It's on the deacon board, pastor's aide, usher. Come on, who's going to show you their flaws? Exactly. So
Yeah.
some the environment will cause them to cloak more of who they really are.
Okay. Well, a lot of people feel like they are going in circles when it comes to dating. They're either dating the same type of dude or it's or woman, and it's like the same situation, different person, and it just keeps happening. It's like how do you break that cycle and be more intentional about breaking it so that you can find the one?
Well, the same way we would with New Year's resolutions, the same way we would do with manifestations of our goals and our dreams. A vision board, a dating vision board, where you write down exactly what it is that you want. And it's not just for manifestation, it's so that you continually know what it is that you want. And, there's some that believe, maybe one, that, the brain will see it. And when you're not even focused on it, and will attract you to that. But
Mhm.
if you haven't written down what you want, then of course everything is going to look like the same. Matter of fact, what happens when you don't write down what you want? You don't broaden your horizons. Your backpack tells you. You go back to the past.
Okay. Now, I did the writing the list down, and then when this one pops up, I'm like, go to the list. Okay, check, 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 check. But I ignored the red flags.
No.
I'm like, nope, it fits. Okay, well, he got this many kids, even though I said it's okay for one, but he got X amount of kids. So it's like, but I was like, nope, but he checks off all the other boxes. So are there instances where it's okay to bend that list a little bit? Or, I mean, in that instance, it was not okay. But in other people, maybe is there an instance where it might be okay to be a little more lenient on that list and maybe not
Well,
stick to it so hard? I don't know.
well, when people talk about red flags, I like that.
Hmm.
But red flags are kind of just kind of what we talk about in general. When we
Yeah.
talk about ourselves, we need to say deal breakers.
Okay.
What's a deal breaker? Because that in and of itself, red flag could mean caution to you, not stop. But when you say deal breaker, that's like no, no, out of the question. More than one child. Um, all the money's going to child support, or where maybe or wherever.
Yeah.
Um, but the point is, excellence is something that I want everyone to kind of just focus on, that personal excellence, because you'll actually attract who you are at the time. That's why it's so important for couples who come together to actually communicate about what they're doing, where they're going, because they can outgrow one another. Excellence,
Um,
what true excellence is, just being better than you were the day before. That's all. Not competing against anybody or
mhm.
anyone. It's being better than I was. And as long as you're striving for that, you'll meet someone. You'll meet someone that's on that same level that you'll have the brain with to deal with.
Mhm. Okay. Let's see, we got a couple more questions in the chat. Lynette McCallum wants to know, so when you are dating with intention, what are the first steps to take? Like, how do you, after you've communicated, this is what I'm looking for out of this. I'm not doing no situationship or whatever your intention is. I'm
But
too old for that.
then you want to know, well, and what are your intentions?
Mm,
Because at the end of the day, what do you want? You want shared values. You know, we can't go any farther without we want shared values,
mhm.
and we want mutual growth. You know, I don't want this to just be about me. You shouldn't want it to just be about you. So I want to know where you stand on this. And folks, depending on the age of the person, a person can tell you that, but then you can look inside their life to see if they actually are doing that.
So that brings me to my next question, and then I'll come back to you, co-host. Um, I keep saying actions speak louder than words. Does that apply when with dating?
Definitely, definitely. Um, our oldest daughter was dating in Philly in college. And she goes, Dad, I meet all these guys, and everyone tells me they're an entrepreneur. They're an entrepreneur. And the first thing I'm like, so what do you do? And they're like, well, I'm about to do this, and I got a plan for this, and I'm going to do this startup. And so on her list, immediately she said, I don't want an entrepreneur, because the entrepreneurs that everyone that I'm meeting, they're gonna,
Mm-hmm.
they haven't.
Right.
And she would ask him, yeah, I mean, she grew up in an entrepreneur family. So she would ask, you know, what's your business plan? Have you written one? You know, your savings? I mean, you know, I mean, she would ask these questions, and these guys would fit everything else that she wanted. But then when it came to their profession, they had no idea what they wanted.
Wow. Okay. What about finances? Is there romance with no finances? How does that work?
It can be, but it's really hard.
Yeah, so people got to be creative and know. And that brings up the Netflix and chill. Like, is that okay to for a first date? I
It is.
say no, but you're the the
Yeah,
doctor.
no, I think it's one of the things that people, what happen with people is that there's something called dating burnout.
Mm,
And what happens is we set such high expectations in these moments with total strangers. And when that person doesn't take us to a 5-star restaurant, when that person doesn't drive up in a Bentley Flying Spur, uh, you know, we're crushed. But
mhm.
again, um, we have to also ask ourselves, what does that mean? You know, is it that we want companionship, or do we want to be taken care of? Or in a healthy manner, I just want to see that this person is doing things.
Well, I was gonna say, can it be both of those things?
It can be. And, and,
Okay.
and, and Netflix and chill, in my opinion, yes, it's a low bar. But if you're out there and you're really trying to find the right one, you know, it can get expensive
Hmm.
for both.
Yeah.
Go to this place and go to the opera and the plays or the boxing match. And, you know, it's all great. But, you know, you really would get to kind of see who they are sitting with a person
Hmm.
and watching a movie. What if that person can't sit still and watch the movie? What if you find out that they have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which is
Hmm.
not a bad thing, but if that's on your list that you don't want, you know, someone that has it, and the person may have it and not take medication for it, know they have it.
Okay.
Medication as a kid did things to them, so they know it. Now they don't take it, and I've seen this. So
Hmm.
there are things that you can still find out about a person without having such lofty expectations. And the higher the expectations, when things don't work out, you know, that's a long way to fall.
Okay. Okay. Let's see another question in the chat. How much patience should you have with potential partners who deflect?
Well, I think we talked about a red flag being lack of communication,
Hmm.
and that deflection isn't isn't true communication. It's really a maladaptive way to communicate, and
Hmm.
it's a poor way to communicate, because instead of talking about it, you know, I'm going to shoot it, keep giving it back to you. So if that's not a deal breaker for you, then maybe you could move on and help that person, or maybe they're only doing it in that one occasion. But if it is a deal breaker for you, again, remember that, folks. I'm not talking red flag, green flag. I'm talking about boundaries. This is a deal breaker. And if it's a deal breaker, you don't make the deal.
Ooh, I like that. Deal breaker, do not make the deal. Because sometimes we ignore our deal breakers.
Yes, yes.
We do. So Valentine's Day coming up. Even just the holidays that just passed, holidays in general seem to be a sore spot for singles. So how can they, especially scrolling on social media, so how can singles kind of still embrace, all these, specifically Valentine's Day? How can they embrace that without feeling like going into another Valentine's Day being single and nobody's asked me out, or no, I'm not meeting anybody, or whatever the case is? So what advice do you have for singles?
I'd like to go to that question that I asked everyone at the top of the show. If I asked you to write a list of all the things you love, how long would it take you to add your name? So if you didn't think about yourself when I asked that question, Valentine's Day for you should be about self-love.
And that's it, and that's all.
You should have a self-love festival for Valentine's Day, a me party.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. And for the couples, how do they date intentionally, especially, let's see, for Valentine's Day, or maybe not, maybe because, a lot of couples will still, whether they're married or not, still do something on Valentine's Day, but just a regular old Wednesday like today.
Well, I'm an advocate of couples dating weekly, whether you like it or not. And I say that to, we get tired. And at the end of the day, folks, remember this, it's not about time management, that you don't have enough time for things. For those of you who said you're going to work out January 2nd and you're not doing it now, you're saying you're blaming it on time. The issue isn't really time, it's energy. So I want you to think about energy management when it comes to the things you do, and particularly dating. How much energy are you going to commit to this and commit to another person, and also committing that energy to yourself? So dating, I recommend that couples do it at least once a week. Guess what? My wife and I do it. And guess what? There are times that we're both exhausted. We'll get in the car and not even, but just drive and talk. But that's our time, our reconnection time. And it doesn't mean that we're not connecting in other spaces, but we're intentional for each other about maintaining and enhancing the connection we have. So dating, holding hands. We live near the beach. We do this thing called earthing when it's warmer. We go to the beach, take our shoes off, and we walk without shoes.
Yeah.
On the beach, holding hands, talking. Those little things, folks, add up to healthy relationships. And all the things that we're talking about today, folks, it can add to healthy relationships, or it could be some of those silent killers that are hurting us.
Let's see. Crystal wants to know, can you talk about the balance between needs-based tension, the push and pull balance in dating?
Gotcha. So I don't believe in balance. First of all, I think balance sets us up to think that there's going to be an equal amount of something for this and an equal amount. We're human. So the best we can do is harmony, what works for us. So the harmony in things, in her question was the two things you mentioned them again, Shamika. She mentioned
sure. She said, can you talk about the balance between needs-based tension, the push and pull balance in dating?
Okay, so needs-based attention or tension?
Tension. Tension. Yeah. Sorry, I'm from North Carolina. I'm a little country.
So tension in relationship isn't a bad thing, folks. It's only a bad thing as of recent years when some of our parents stole our heart. And so now when distress or discomfort comes our way, sometimes we crumble. But no, tension is not a bad thing. Tension can actually be a sign that you're moving out of your comfort zone. Tension can be a sign that we're both on growing doesn't happen without growing pains. So I'm not someone that thinks that tension is a bad thing. I think most of the time when there's tension, I would ask couples to sit in it, sit in it, sit with it, and stop running from it. And that's what most of us do.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know much that happens in our comfort zone.
Yeah, no, I don't either. I don't either. Now, there was one other question. I know because we're about to wrap up. This has been so good. You're gonna have to come back, Doc. You got to come back because this was so good. Can astrology reveal our true romantic compatibility? Because I know I've seen people say, "Oh, I'd never date a Virgo." I don't know what people have against Virgos because we're amazing, but people
Yes, my wife's a Virgo.
yeah.
Virtuous woman, like you. So yeah, yeah. So let me tell you about astrology, folks. So I grew up in a Baptist church. That when people talked about it, oh no, don't it's this witchcraft as of this. But I want to share with you how many people I've met that actually have doctorates and master's degrees in this science. And this science is more than reading the horoscope in a newspaper. That's really the antithesis of what they do. They take your birthday, the time of day that you were born, and all of these things do. Then there's scientific evidence and correlation do come close to having the traits and attributes of people born on that day or within that span. So I do believe it. And I can't tell you that I grew up believing it, but it wasn't until I spent time in academia and higher education meeting people who had studied it.
Wow. See, y'all might want to check out a Virgo.
There's some really good books out there, folks,
Yeah.
on compatibility of love signs.
Okay. You guys, do you have any more questions before we wrap up? I'm going to ask you if there's any final words of encouragement for those out there in these dating streets, because I think I had a guest, it was last year sometime, but she said there's pee in the dating pool.
but there's lots of chlorine to get it.
Yeah.
So I would say, and maybe you've heard this before, but being single won't kill you, and being in a relationship won't heal you.
Ooh.
So I want people to understand that, because we live in a social comparison world right now. And you see everyone living their best lives, living on their best dates, all over the place. And it sometimes gives us pressure to think that we have to be like them. No, we can be ourselves. And the more you are yourself, the more you're going to attract. We attract who we are, what we are. And the other advice that I would give for your listeners, your co-hosts, I love that. The other advice I would give for your married co-hosts would be, sometimes we say the relationships were made in heaven, but the work takes place here on earth.
Oh, okay. I love that. We have one more question in the chat. How important is it for someone to know their attachment styles to date effectively?
Wonderful. That's an excellent question. And that's a whole nother show that I'd love to come back for, Shamika.
Yes. Because I was thinking about it too. Like, that would be a great one.
Attachment style is affected by everything. I mean, that backpack. Its attachment style is based on your rearing, who was in your home, how you interacted with your parents, guardians, your siblings. All of those things pretty much tell how much you can connect or how you'll connect with another human being. Are you avoidant? The avoidant attachment style, where you have had some experiences of neglect that you don't want to be let down and disappointed. So the minute you think you get close to someone, you pull away. It's too good to be true syndrome. That I'm going to hurt. It's going to be just like everything else. So that attachment style is really important. Also, your love language. Your love language is another. Love language isn't as deep as it doesn't have the empirical evidence to support it as much as attachment style. But if you know your attachment style, and it's an unhealthy one, by the way, then work on it. Work on it. And remember, folks, that if you're in a storm and you're trying to date someone, you're going to get them wet. We got to heal thyself first.
Amen. Amen. That's my clapping. Amen. So for my last question, what feeds your soul?
My soul is fed by attempting to be the most grateful human being on this planet.
That's a great answer. I really love that. I thought you were going to say talking about dating and intention and all the things that you do. But I love that answer because that was authentic. That was really authentic. And I like that. Doc, like you said, you got to come back. I think we're definitely going to do one on attachment styles for sure. For sure. Thank you for joining us here on blackdoctor.org on Celebration. It's been an absolute pleasure. And don't hang up when we're done. Everyone else, for more information about dating with intention, relationships, head over to blackdoctor.org. There's articles and resources over there. And next week, y'all, do y'all watch BET's All the Queen's Men? Because I have one of the actresses is coming to talk about balancing her career while trying to be a caregiver and how she's handling all that. So that's going to be a great conversation. I'm going to let y'all try to figure out which actress. And I want everybody to have an amazing Valentine's Day and have a soul-filled rest of the week. And I will see you guys next Wednesday. Have a good night. Oh, yeah. Happy Valentine's Day, y'all.